Good morning. Welcome back to the Gilbertson Aero Factory. Today is Wednesday, the 13th of November, 2023. It's about 10 a.m., a little bit of a later start. I was busy getting inspired, getting caught up on Ryan Fly's channel. I still left a couple episodes to catch up on later in the day. Today is going to be continuing on with the ailerons, getting the skins bent and final size drilled, dimpled, and maybe even the stiffeners riveted on. So we'll see how far we're going to get. Nothing really to add to that. We'll just get right into it. So, as always, let's build an airplane.
Yes, the camera is crooked, and that's something that we're going to have to live with throughout the entirety of this video. Okay, sitting on the bench there, you see I have a pile of primed stiffeners that cured overnight. Not that that really matters much, especially in this humid environment. So I've got the two trailing edge skins, the trailing skins for the ailerons, and just kind of mocking them up with the stiffeners, removing all the blue vinyl, which is its own thing. Getting all of the stiffeners attached so we can go through the process of final size drilling all of the holes. They're pretty close on this kit, so it's been so long since I've done this. I know that I've talked about this before, but I just use, in this case, a number 40 reamer, not a drill bit leaves, because they're undersized but ever so slightly, so a reamer is a great tool for the job. And it doesn't leave any burrs. So one thing that you will not see me doing here is going through a million holes with a deburring tool. Because I am priming the mating surfaces, I scuff up all those rivet lines. And like I said, the reamer doesn't leave any burrs. I check the holes. I don't just decide I'm not deburring. I do check the holes, but yeah, once I have scuffed those rivet lines, they're really clean. And what I don't want to do is get enthusiastic like a lot of new builders do, and end up chamfering those holes by being too aggressive about deburring. So nice clean holes. And you maybe can see that I have the two end ribs attached. It's going to be, they're not really this early on in the attaching, but I wanted to go ahead and, since they were there, get those the final size drills. Well, everything except for the very top hole, those are not, because I will final size drill those when they're mated up with the skin and the spar. So yeah, this is tedious work, but I don't want to make it sound terrible. It is just sort of listening to airplanes in the background on YouTube and a lot of repetitive movements. You've seen us do this a lot. It's just been a long time since you've seen me do it, because I haven't been building in a while. Although, I mean, if you started watching my channel just a couple months ago, then it probably seems like, oh yeah, just recently. But the fact is, I mean, I think the last time I did any sort of skin prep was maybe in the spring for the top skins, but I think it was actually last fall. I think I had the skin prep done on those top skins early on, like long before we ever got into it. So anyways, yeah, going through the whole process, you put a cleco in every other hole. Drill, shift all the clecos one hole, drill, and then you're finally done with it. Here, edge finishing. Again, something I haven't done in a long time. So my process for edge finishing has evolved over the course of the build. If you could feel the edges of those sheets that have been punched out, the edges are pretty sharp, and they've got bumps along the length of those punches where they've been punched out. So I use a pretty aggressive Vixen file to do a rough treatment of the edge to try to knock down the bigger bumps. And then I have a pretty fine, I think it's a chainsaw file that I use to go after that. And then also an edge finishing tool, which chamfers or breaks the edge a little bit. That's mostly it. It's a bit of work to get it all done, but I think like the first one that I did here took a while, and then I kind of got back in the groove and remembered the technique that I had used before. And then I come in finally with a die grinder, with a little, like a 1-inch or 2-inch Scotch-Brite wheel to just do the final finish on those edges. And they come out really nice. And the corners, here's something you haven't seen before. I got rid of that big crate that I was using for priming on because I just needed the space on my garage. And so I got that little rack, and I'm trying that out. We'll see how that goes. Tim and I were talking about it. We both intend to paint our own airplanes and buy the inflatable bouncy houses for paint booths. So I figured no harm in getting a rack to hang stuff on. Going through and dimpling all of the stiffeners. Again, having been out of the shop for so long, one thing that it's really easy to do, and this is kind of like being a brand new builder, as a new builder, is not paying attention and putting the dimple the wrong direction in those stiffeners and dimpling them outwards. So I can happily say that I did not make that mistake. I was pretty deliberate about the way that I went about all of the activities I did today to make sure that I wasn't going to mess anything up. There is the little close quarters dimple set on the edge of the bench. So those trailing or those end ribs get really tight in the end, and you can't fit a squeeze or anything in there. So you'd have to kind of way back in the channel to learn about that. Dimpler. Yeah, I mean, this thing is sped up 3,500%, so it goes by pretty quickly. I've taken the skins down off of the rack. They've had enough time to dry, and now just doing all the dimpling, getting them ready. The goal here today, I wasn't really sure how long this would take or if I would get fatigued and mess something up, but the goal was to get all of the stiffeners attached to the skins, and there's a fair amount of prep on the skins, obviously. So it ended up being just under 6 hours, I think 5.7 hours in the shop, just straight through, which is good. The weather has been really nice the last 2 days, so those are the 2 nice days this year, I suppose, in East Texas. So the other thing when I got into, so we're going to be back riveting here, and I decided I was just going to load every single rivet before I got into it. So that's what you see me doing here. A tip that I got from Tim before, this isn't rivet tape and it's not plain old Scotch tape. It is Scotch wall safe tape, and it works freaking great. If you've never back riveted before and you're thinking, I'll just use some Scotch tape, it's a mess. You end up with using a pick to dig tape out from around the edges of the rivet heads. But the wall safe tape works great. So glad for that. So I made a couple of things look really difficult today. The back riveting, that is, I think that's the right aileron skin over there. Maybe it's the left. It doesn't really matter at this point. But yeah, I mean, I actually had to drill one out. It is difficult to get the forward or I suppose that's the aftmost, the one closest to the bend. You have to get aggressive about unbending that to get the rivet gun in there. And you'd think that back riveting is pretty basic, but I found a way to mess it up, and I actually ended up using an oops rivet in that spot because the hole was boogered up. But yeah, I wasn't really it's, you know, it's all passable, but I wasn't really happy with the back riveting that I did on that skin. The second skin, I felt better about it. The other thing was I decided to use an edge forming tool on the long edges of these two skins where they're going to meet up with the spar and the forward skin. And I've never had difficulty with the edge forming tool. It basically just puts a little tiny little break in the skin so that it sits down more flush. But man, I had a lot of trouble with it, which is so weird. It kept riding up, and I guess it just misadjusted. I don't know. It's not really going to matter. It's cosmetic, and it'll all be lost. So that's it for this one. See ya.